Well, you've got a nice little galley there, Paul.
It is nice. It is nice. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just my little improved shed. That's the wife calls it, really. She does actually. She's promised to come out on it more this year. So that'd be very nice. I'm looking forward to that, and so we can get the best use out of it before I may have to give it up, really.
That would be a big wrench, wouldn't it, if you sold this?
I'm not sure what I would do without this as a release from my situation. It is getting less and less that I'm able to get out and to justify having the boat, and I would hate for it just to sit here and deteriorate. So and I've just now done, I've just anti-fouled it, done everything else to it, so it's all back together again. But if I can't always get down it because the illness creeps in, and sometimes that can be for a month, maybe 2 months before I'm down and able to get back out again, one has to weigh the balances up, really. Yes, it would be a hell of a wrench for me, because it's coming down here, sometimes just being on the boat just makes me feel nice, and pleasant, really. But that's life, isn't it? I had a bit of a shocker. That's now 3 years, and now in 2014. I was a perfectly healthy person, never been to the doctor for years and years and years, didn't even know who my doctor was, to be perfectly honest with you. Being a builder, really fit, so never really had that much days off work through illness. But I then contracted a rare disease, which was a total shock to everybody, one that I'd never even heard of myself, which is called AD for short, which is aortic dissection. And usually from an aortic dissection an aneurysm forms, because what it actually is your main artery from your heart that feeds the rest of your body, including your legs and arms and head, actually separates on the inside, so then it tears, so the blood goes down both sides. Usually the blood then leads into the body, and that is what people die from. It's a very misdiagnosed disease, treated normally as a heart attack. Awareness of AD now is really getting quite advanced through the hospital, so much less of the misdiagnosed at the time, and I'm a living example of only about 4% of people, 4 to 6% of people that ever survive that, because that's normally instant death. Fortunately for me, and brilliant to the people who came out and with the ambulance and everything else, recognised what had happened and treated me accordingly, which actually did save my life. So I'm very grateful to those guys, and for the awareness of what AD actually is, as opposed to a heart attack, which has very similar correspondences, but mistreated means death for the person that is being mistreated.
But this disease hasn't stopped you sailing, but it's frightened away crew members, hasn't it?
I suppose it could be a controversial discussion between people that would say, why are you sailing if you are at risk of death? Because the wall is so thin, obviously it could burst at any time, if that would be the saying. In which case that would probably be immediate death wherever I am.
So is it the fact that potential crew members are really frightened to be in a position that if you had a seizure or an attack, they would be left alone?
Yes, I would say that has a lot to do with it. A lot of people say, well, what would I do if you did go down? Because I don't need to be resuscitated in the normal manner of anyone else. I need to go to hospital as quick as possible. The snag is I'm already quite aware that I probably won't make it, so to me it's more of a just get the boat back to port, can't really whatever can be done. But to be honest with you, my condition says that if that happens, then I don't believe I would actually make it no matter where I was. It's rare for that.
So what are the symptoms then, Paul? If you're on board, what symptoms have you got to be aware of?
I'd imagine the same as what it did first off. It's just that the wall of the lining between the artery is now so thin, it has blood going down both sides of it. So I think your average wall was about 3 mil. I now have 1.5 mil, right about that, from top to bottom. So, but the way that the controlling it is through a lot of drugs that I have to take to more or less put my body into a slight chemical freeze, if you like. I'm just above ticking over enough to make most of my organs operate reasonably well, and what it doesn't, I take other drugs to make sure they're forcing them to do it. So that's the only drawback I would have said with that, is through the drugs. They can't really do anything about it because it would take, meaning the whole removal of my aorta, which is absolutely major operation. The risk to that is going for between 4 to 6% of a survival rate. It can be done. It is rare, very expensive, probably in America and Sweden and places like that, where they pioneer this. They are getting better at it, but I'm lucky to be here, so I don't really want to dwell on that, and so I think that's the way it goes. I think to anyone else would be, I can understand the frightening aspect of it, but to reassure those that I do sail with that they do fully understand that, and it's no liability to them.
So in the beginning, were the symptoms the same as, say, a stroke or a heart attack?
The main difference that you would know if it's AD would have been months prior to it happening to me, which is, again, I'm involved with hospitals and other people like this that are trying to make awareness of AD, of whether you are contacting it. It happens because you would find a lot of tickling across your top of your shoulders. It starts with one or all of these symptoms. A pain in your chest and a high blood pressure, like hot acid inside yourself. That's all I can describe that as, if someone had poured acid inside you and you're burning from the inside out. That is because your blood is emptying into your cavities. Because most people wouldn't understand what is happening to you, it just is what it is. I think at the time I accepted I was going to go because the pain was so intense, and I hadn't realised, or no one really knew what the sexing was, and to be ripped, to have your tubes ripped from top to bottom down through your legs, from about here down through your left leg. Imagine what it's like just tearing a little bit of skin. Now imagine that internally with your whole tube being ripped and the blood going down what would be your normal flesh, I suppose. Was quite an experience. I didn't think I would survive. I thought that was the end of it and accepted it, really. I was quite surprised when a few months later I woke up in hospital still here.
So where did your attack happen then, Paul?
I was just in my garden, sawing up a bit of timber, and that's all I remember, just clutching my chest. It felt initially as if someone had speared me. That's all I can describe that as, if someone had ran at me with a massive great spear and speared me through. But I would say, and it caught on the back of my skin on my back, and it was tearing, like flaying the skin off my back. That's the sensation. It's what I could imagine had to be, a flaying, the tearing of skin. But obviously that wasn't on my back, it was on going down through my body, my aorta splitting open, really.
But I mean, this hasn't stopped you sailing though, has it?
No.
Do you think
I was more determined in the first, I was in hospital, but I couldn't really do anything for about the first year and a half. It's taken a year and a half to recover, to physically walk or to do anything else, to get them, because of the intenseness of the drugs are to get you under control, get your body under control. It's different for everybody. There is no one person who suffered this is the same as the other. The stories are so different in how they're treated and the reaction to the drugs. It is a bit like people that contract cancer, and their reaction, everyone has a different reaction. Although they lose their hair, they do certain main things that happen, but how they're affected in their life depends much on their past history, their medical conditions, age, and other things like this. But yeah, those that are managed on are still managed on drugs rather than an operation, mainly because the operation is just so dangerous. Everyone would rather avoid it unless it's absolutely necessary.
So, how does it affect your sailing then?
Mainly when my whole day is regulated. I get about 4 hours a day, around about 4 to 5 hours a day, where I can be normal, if you like. After that, the batteries run down because I'm only getting half the oxygen that's feeding all my organs and feeding everything. And again, if you took the count that my average tick over is around about between 90 to 95 beats per minute, so I'm more or less just above hibernation. So basically I just shouldn't be walking, shouldn't be doing, because it's not pumping enough oxygen around my body to do anything that's energetic or anything. And if any energetic I do, I tend to get very dizzy if I sustain it, because it's just not getting oxygen to my head. Usually when I sail, I'm asleep 2 days before I sleep to make sure I've built up enough energy inside me to sustain the journey wherever I go, in case, because I have been caught like that in the gale force night. I managed to get the boat back to port, so I know it can be done, but the demand is an extreme one on me, and I wouldn't want to do that again.
So where do you sail? Where are your cruising grounds, Paul?
A lot curtailed than where I would like it, but mainly from where we're at Ealing now, so it takes around about 2 hours to get to Calshot Head. And on one main trip I can get all the way down to Portsmouth, right down to Fareham, which is a beautiful little club down there, Hardway. Mainly we travel up to Newport, which I quite love Newport, and Newtown Creek is another place I love going to. It's a beautiful creek. It is a bit more isolated, but sometimes, because I can't do a lot of things other than the club members do, sometimes that suits me slightly better, really.
And what are the figures like for AD in the UK? Do you have any idea?
On the actual UK website now, because most of us are in contact with our local hospitals, when these things do happen, which are very rare, there's only, I think, registered now 64 in the whole of the UK.
So you're not going to let this stop your sailing then, Paul?
I see no need for that. As long as I can still get up and walk about. Obviously my organs are deteriorating because they're not working at the same pressure, which they are monitoring. This may be my last year, I don't know. I've been told it possibly may be, because if your kidneys aren't functioning correctly, then there is a deterioration. And there are people I know that have been living with AD for 20 years. I think that's the oldest I know of. But this possibly, there is a certain limit of what I can and can't do. There will be a time when the body deteriorates, as it is with people with cancer and so forth on. You can beat it a few times, but in the end it will probably catch up with you.
So is your little boat keeping you fit and well and alive?
Oh, I think anyone who does any sailing knows the effort it takes to go sailing. I think probably at the beginning of this film you'll notice the paddling out, just the paddling out. Anything I do is a time ticking energy thing to me. So where my boat is moored as opposed to where the pontoon is, to most people that is nothing. To me it's a major. It's to me that's climbing Mount Everest. Time I untie the boat, get the reps, get all the ropes sorted out, check engine, check oil, check all the utilities on the boat, I'm absolutely whacked, let alone sailing out of port. So I have to do that normally. If I have to sail, then I will sail, do all those checks probably a day previous, and then sleep on the boat to get over that part, so the boat then is ready to go without any further checks, really, because time is always limited for me.